And welcome to Netflix and Kill. Travis, we have another animated edition on our hands here.
Okay.
Quite an animated edition. And you know, when we like to do the animations, we like to go get someone more of an expert than us. Normally it is Odebro Ed, but we actually have another guest, another
pinch hitter, if you will.
What's that?
A pinch hitter?
Another pinch hitter, yes. Another one in the roster here. Why, who do we have? Why, it's Nick Izumi. Say hi, Nick.
Hey, everybody.
And then, of course, is you'll remember him from our One Punch Man review back in Kitsudacon. Great time there. That was real fun. Just so much fun. We had to bring him back on. Nick, what are we talking about today?
Okay, today we are talking about one of the more recent entries in the ongoing mythological fever dream that is the Fate series.
Pretty good way of describing it.
Indeed.
It really is.
This one being Fate Apocrypha.
Mm-hmm.
Nick, this was my first Fate series, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So this was very confusing to me, so I feel like I should not do the plot summary on this one. Nick, what is Fate Apocrypha about?
So I guess I'll preface that by saying I'm actually a huge fan of the Fate series. I'm very fond of this series, but it's definitely has a lot of required reading before it starts making sense.
It's so impenetrable, I think it's made out of mithril. It's just...
It might be. Emphasis on the myth. Fate Apocrypha is... Like I mentioned before, it is part of the ongoing Fate series, and Fate usually revolves around a bunch of magicians summoning historical and mythological figures to do battle for a holy grail. And this series' big twist on that is instead of just 7 servants fighting for a grail, you've got 2 teams of 7 servants and 1 ref servant.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I want to point out this real quick. Apocrypha basically literally means non-canon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this one, from my understanding, it's not part of the... It's like an alternate
universe. Yeah.
It's an alternate universe.
Okay.
Its version of World War II and the Third Holy Grail War implies that Fate Zero and Stay Night could not have possibly happened.
Right.
Correct. That's what I thought, because I'm like, if I'm tracking this logically, I think some of this doesn't make sense with the other Fate series, but I have watched a lot of them now. I don't think I've watched all of them, but most
you've watched all of the anime that are actually on Netflix.
They're on, yeah. I watched all the Netflix, well, except for the new one, whatever the...
Oh, yeah, but that one's even more skippable, that one.
Yeah, the extra thing. Yeah, there's some quality Nero in it, and one Madoka Magica episode was fun.
Don't they go into the digital world or something?
It's basically, I think it's a spin-off of one of the PSP games, to be honest. I don't even know.
Fate Apocrypha meets the Digidestin. I love it.
That could be a podcast by itself, just figuring out what historical or heroic spirit the Digidestin would summon. But
one historical figure must have had goggles at some point. Which one is, now I forgot the guy who invented the plane.
Yeah, the Wright brothers.
The Wright brothers. Yeah, I bet you the Wright brothers could be.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Good rider class summon, I think.
Yeah, and they
have to be. It'd be actually one of the few rider class summons that actually make sense.
Sure.
Like, ooh, they actually wrote something. Yeah. Medusa.
Rather than this character rode a horse one time, I guess.
Or Medusa, who had a Pegasus fly out of her head when she was decapitated. Nope, totally rode that thing. I'm like, no.
Okay.
It makes sense.
Okay, sure, I guess.
Sure, why not?
I love the series.
So this one focuses a little bit more, so there's not really much of a main character for the first couple episodes, which is interesting. Because it turns out the main character is actually this artificial human that, this homunculus that one of the servants saves and, transfers his spirit into the homunculus, sort of, kinda, because that's how that works. Look,
well, you have the initial setup is really interesting though, because it doesn't like the first episode doesn't clue you in as to who the main characters will be at all, and it kind of misleads you as to who the good guys are.
Yeah,
because you meet Shishigo, and he's apparently working for the Red Faction, but then you meet the Red Faction.
And like,
we actually only see basically 2 masters from the Red Faction.
Yeah, we only see what's the Necromancer.
Kairi Shishigo.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, guys. It's gonna be a lot of the red one and the black one of whatever their class is for this, because I don't remember anybody's fucking name.
That's fair. Remember, you get a millennia. You get a millennia.
What's that?
You get a millennia.
What?
You get a millennia.
By the way, great drinking game with this show. Every time they say you get a millennia, take a drink.
No, don't do that. We do not.
That's how sorority girls die.
But yeah, for the Red Faction, we have Kairi Shishigo, who is the Necromancer. And then basically the only other person we really see from the Red Faction is Shiro Kotomine. And then all the other like Red Faction masters are like hidden behind like a cloth most of the time.
Sure. And it's pretty apparent what's going on with them, because it's like once we get halfway through this, like even the first season of this series, and we still haven't seen but one of them, other than their introduction of like, this is what this guy is. You kind of go, I don't think things have worked out for them.
No.
Like, it's just, by the nature of storytelling, if we haven't been introduced to them yet, I don't think we're gonna. So...
But it still kind of gives you a nice mislead, because then meanwhile, at the Black Faction, you meet pretty much all the masters on that side.
Oh, every single
one. But
one.
it's like, yeah, all but one. But at the same time, when they're introducing them, it's like, yeah, they broke off of the Mages Association, and their leader of their servants is freaking Vlad Tepes.
Also, they allied with the Nazis.
Yeah, their patriarch was a literal Nazi back in the 30s. It's like...
Well, when the main servant that seems to be running shit is Vlad the Impaler, you kind of go like, oh, I probably shouldn't be rooting for this team.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so, like, there's a bunch of rules to the series,
that they usually break.
Yeah. Like, it's pretty much one of those things that I don't, oh boy. It's like one of those things that in anime and just basically a lot of storytelling and specifically is where they set up rules so that people can break them later and people can go, oh man, he's not supposed to be able to do that, or, oh man, that's supposed to be impossible, sort of thing.
What I appreciated, though, on that note, is that you have the other protagonist of the series is the referee of this Grail War.
Basically.
Ruler.
Yes. A.k.a.
Joan of Arc. Who, that is her entire job, is supposed to be to make sure that the rules are being followed. And she fails miserably at that job, but...
Oh, she starts breaking rules herself.
Like, it feels like she's laying down on her job a little bit, because everyone's breaking all the rules, and Joan of Arc, like, rarely ever fucking shows up. Like...
To her credit, most of the ground she is covering, it is implied that she gets around Romania mainly by running.
Yeah.
And the amount of ground she covers and the amount of time she covers it is impressive.
Which is also
explain this to me here, because some of the servants can just run around and ride on shit.
Yeah, any servant that has the riding skill can basically take control of any vehicle.
Right.
But a ruler doesn't have that ability or any way of doing that.
Right. Okay, so sabers and riders can definitely run around. But let me ask you this, guys, because it seems like they can teleport at will. All of them.
Well, that's if I think that's only if they have a master.
They have to have a master, and it expends a master's command seal to do that.
Oh, okay.
So you can only do it 3. I understood you could only do it like max 3 times.
Okay, I'm pretty sure I've seen some of the other people where they've like warped in and out of existence.
Well, they can turn to spirit form, but they're still kind of traveling with their master at that time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, seems nebulous. But
yeah, it is very nebulous. It's basically an excuse for them, like, used traumatic tension to use a command seal.
It seems like a convenient excuse so that we don't have to end every fight immediately. Like, I'll tell you what, guys, like, there's like
Not unfair.
there's a whole season, like, the whole season 1 is just a bunch of cock teasing for fighting. Like, we're gonna fight for a little bit, but then eventually one of us will get hurt or something and then have to retreat via our spirit teleport, that we
See, counterpoint though, what I liked about season 1 is that they did that a bit for the first couple episodes, but then they pulled a full escalated quickly for the entire last half of season 1, which is basically the culling of all of the least interesting characters.
Yeah, it's like, whoops, sorry, Spartacus, you're gonna disappear pretty damn quick.
So yeah,
with an exception for Frankenstein, who every time I get to her demise, I cry a little bit.
Poor Fran.
Poor Fran.
I do love Frankenstein 2 here because obviously a lot of these characters are gender flipped as well, which is interesting because we basically get Bride of Frankenstein, although she is still looking for a mate, but she never actually specifies what gender she's looking for. So I'm like, I wonder if she's also looking for a Bride of Frankenstein. If Frankenstein's monster got real progressive,
that'd be
all
interesting.
Of a sudden, but they never really So the gender flipped thing has always confused me, and the more series I watch, it confuses me even more. Because at first I thought they choose forms based off of their spirit forms, because obviously some of them didn't look like this in their past lives. That would be ridiculous. Hercules wasn't a monster looking thing. But then
well, that also is the fact that he came through as a berserker class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, berserkers get warped.
Right. So but then so that's why Arthur and Mordred come back as female versions of themselves, and I understand that the real reason is that the Japanese animators want to draw people that are hotter, and I understand that this used to be a visual novel series in which Arthur was a very pretty male character for a dating sim, but then they just gender flipped him at the last minute. So, that's why, which...
More or less.
Right,
yeah,
right.
They gender flipped him because the game turned into a porno game at the last minute.
Uh-huh.
And, yeah. Sometimes I hate admitting that, but I imagine I don't hate admitting that as much as Type Moon, the studio that owns Fate and has spent the last decade trying to make people forget that. Regret mentioning that.
So there's... So I get that this has a complicated past and everything, but even in which one were we watching? Fate Zero, where it's where Arthur comes around or Arturia, and it's oh well, yeah, I suppose you would think I was a dude since I pretended to be a male when back in my time, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. You're telling me that Arthur in this universe, Arthur Pendragon, was always a chick? Because I feel like that doesn't team up logically here, because even Mordred calls Arthur father.
Yeah.
In this one.
According to Fate lore, Arturia biologically is Mordred's father.
Wait, what?
Well, Arturia had a wizard.
Oh,
you might have heard of him.
Okay.
And Arturia wanted a biological heir.
And she couldn't do it the old-fashioned way?
Nope. The plan was with Guinevere, and then, you have the typical thing that happens in all of the post-Morte Artur versions of the story, where Morgan Le Fay intervened.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Okay, this just got 100 times weirder.
I kind of feel like most Arthurian lore would actually be fixed if Lancelot had just fucked Arthur.
Maybe. I'm not opposed to it.
That would actually fix most things.
It's just...
Guinevere might be a little angry, but I don't know.
Not to get us too off track, but someone's... I'm a big mythology nerd, especially Arthurian mythology. I'm in the middle of a project where I'm trying to read almost all of everything starting at Geoffrey of Monmouth moving forward. People have been sending me any articles they find about Arthurian stuff now to make me laugh, and one person pointed out, we get a good out for the fall of Camelot in the movie The Sword and the Stone. Because if Merlin just would have turned that squirrel into a lady, all of his problems would have gone away. Boink the squirrel, Arthur. Boink
Thank you for making me think of Sword in the Stone again, because now I want to go back and watch that.
It's a great movie.
It is.
Bibbidi boppity boppity walk.
Some of the thing with any of the servants in the Fate series, they always get super anime-ized and stylized, but again, as a mythology nerd, I actually enjoyed that a lot of the a lot of the things they do with these servants are real deep cuts to mythology.
No, they usually
And,
find
like,
some weird thing about them that like, yep, this random fact about them is now like a special power of theirs.
Well, we'll get to Jack the Ripper in a minute.
Yeah.
Well, even since we kind of started this on Frankenstein, I do think it's worth noting in Mary Shelley's novel, it's never stated that the monster, or Adam as he is referred later in the book, is actually monstrous looking, other than that his eyes make Victor uncomfortable. Like, that's the only monstrous thing about Adam, is that about the monster is that his eyes make Victor uncomfortable. And sure enough, the only not particularly pretty thing about Fate's Frankenstein monster is that she has heterochromia.
Right. Well,
are you telling me I enjoy those deep cuts.
Are you telling me that Hot Frankenstein is canon? Because I'll tell you what.
Yeah, basically. Even male Frankenstein, Hot Frankenstein is canon. You are correct.
I'll tell you. So, man, that might change my opinion on I, Frankenstein. No, that movie's still bullshit. But what were we talking about?
I don't know.
Oh, that's right. Fate Apocrypha. I'm not gonna lie, guys. This is my favorite Fate series.
Really?
Like, right off the bat. Yeah. And which is confusing to me because it is the most confusing out of all of them, considering how many rules that it has to set up and break, and I don't know all the ones that it's setting up or breaking even beforehand anyway. I don't know the previous lore or any of the deep cuts that it's making. But this one, it actually helps out that the story is very basic for most of it. Like, it's one side versus the other side, and they all fight, and some of them have previous relationships, some of them have differing goals, or similar goals, even though they're on different sides. It's pretty standard story stuff, but it allows for pretty interesting mixes and matches for fighting. And the fighting in this series is pretty tip-top.
It is.
There's some pretty awesome fights in this shit. And, like...
There's some unforgettable throwdowns.
I mean, basically the show opens with the two sabers fighting each other in a really epic battle.
Well, I like Mordred, and the her. I'm just going to refer to her as her since she's a female in this series. So I'm not sure because they seem to refer to each other as the male form anyway. But I have no idea.
Biological. I'm only gonna cut hairs on that because I know a lot of the other like official media also uses the her pronoun.
Right.
And I'm really torn and not entirely comfortable with that because
I don't know what to use for them either.
Real talk here. I'm a non-binary person myself. Mm-hmm. By the way, I've come out on literally every podcast that I'm on except for my own YouTube channel, so take that as you will.
Okay.
Because Fate Mordred gets so defensive about being called a woman, I'm always really uncomfortable with it, so I guess, like, I default to he, but that's also because I've been... another weird thing about myself here, I have always loved Mordred of most of all the Knights of the Round Table, even when I was a little kid reading Arthurian mythology. Yes, my favorite character was the traitor. I don't know what to make of that.
I mean, it makes me a little more nervous about you, Nick, but other than that...
He's going to see our podcast run.
The patricide was a one-off thing. It was a once-in-a-lifetime mistake.
Oh, that's the first time we've had patricide admitted on the podcast, too.
Typically you do not commit patricide more than once. It's kind of hard.
A lot of first times here.
I'm gonna... Mordred's a complicated character, and I'm also gonna just throw that out there. That Mordred is a big reason why this is one of my favorite parts of the franchise myself. Because, again, favorite mythological figure, and then I see very similar gender identity issues to my own.
Sure.
And I really appreciated that about this version of Mordred, who's just fun and spunky and gets some of the best lines in the show. And the best fight scenes, honestly.
I'll tell you what, since the character does seem to be preferred to called him, we'll refer to him as the male then.
Okay.
At least for this podcast, because, I mean,
Them, they is always safe.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not sure on middle, like, with pronouns, I find them, they is usually a really safe one to use.
So, yeah, Mordred has some really interesting stuff going on. And the most badass of armor. Love this.
Yes.
Like, this armor is awesome.
His armor with the horns and all the silver and red looks awesome.
Yes, like, and then the red highlights and stuff, like, especially mixed in with the saber energy, whatever it is, power, like, that highlights, after, like, a big attack or something. Just really, really fucking cool looking, like, aesthetically. Especially after watching Arturia in the other Fate series. I never really liked Arturia's design of, like, the battle dress. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, it doesn't really look all that practical, and it just, I don't know. It never really came off as a good look to me. Mordred seems like a knight.
Right.
Like
Mordred's got armor.
like a fucking battle combatant. Like,
Well, Mordred's also making up for... Mordred's a small person.
Yeah.
Like, so,
He is short.
you know, it's... Like, in what I can only assume is a combination of intense, gender dysphoria and, a major height,
some Napoleon syndrome going on.
some major Napoleon syndrome going on.
Mm-hmm.
Mordred has this huge, like, the armor has, like, these ginormous shoulder pads.
Oh,
and,
sure.
you know, these big horns on the helmet. And then when...
It's like a 70s disco up in here. Shoulder pads.
Yeah. And so when they take their armor off, you see that it's this very skinny person.
So some overcompensation may be going on there.
Oh, absolutely.
Just a little bit.
I don't feel compensation is the wrong term at all in this situation.
Definitely some padding going on, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, because Mordred's master, who's the necromancer, their dynamic is actually pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I like them, and they're like constant in conflict of like what to do. Mordred's always kind of like, let's go fucking fight, let's go like tear up shit. And the necromancer.
Why does it always seem like the people who are really like, I want to stand back and like plot things, always get the saber classes?
They do.
It's true.
They always seem to be like, no, I'm the saber. We should be out there fighting, like just fucking shit up, and like, no, we gotta be more cool and collected. Like, fuck that.
Yeah, because in this series, the necromancer gets her, and Zero, the assassin, gets.
Yeah, it's. I loved Shishigo, the necromancer, so much because it's magic biker dad.
Yep.
Let's
Magic
be real
biker
here.
dad.
Like Mordred has
No,
so
it
many
is All
daddy
Might
issues.
in leather jacket. Like, that's what it is.
Yeah, really, yeah. Like, Mordred has all these daddy issues and ends up teamed up with Magic Biker Dad over here, who's just...
Like, who doesn't want All Might biker dad?
I'm proud of you, Mordred. I care. It's not like you're my dad or anything. Whatever. But yeah, that's fun. Of course, there's some other characters that don't quite get as much backstory.
Spartacus.
Spartacus.
Spartacus, like I kind of like that he's got the all for one power or whatever. Like, I'm Spartacus or whatever his power was that they mentioned like one time.
Yeah.
But
what I love about Spartacus is that you just turn him in a direction and he fights whatever's in that direction.
Basically.
Right.
People, trees, whatever.
Like, literally, he goes, as berserkers are wont to do, he goes berserk, runs into the black faction, the black faction take him hostage, and then immediately just turn him toward the red faction and goes right back to what he was doing, but in the opposite direction.
yeah, it seems like that was not a well thought out plan on the Red Faction part.
Well, they also didn't seem like they could even control him.
Well, I mean, it's with what we learned about the Red Masters later. It's kind of like, oh, well, maybe they weren't even in a position to even do anything about it. But then again, we have other characters like, I thought William Shakespeare would have been a little bit more important to the story.
He's a caster. They stay back and don't do much.
Yeah, I mean, some of the other casters have done other shit, but
see, I enjoyed Shakespeare, but in a really weird sort of way. Particularly, in the post-credit sequence of one of the Season 2 episodes, he has a full-on Rick and Morty Mr. Poopy Butthole moment. where he addresses the camera and is just like, what will happen to our heroes? And the whole time I'm like, what's going to happen to Ruler, huh? She gonna be okay? You think they're going to get the Grail?
Well, it looks like the Duke Sabers have gotten themselves in a pickle. Tune in next week to see. And
I don't know, I thought like Shakespeare seemed like more like a comical character, all up until the point where he starts like mentally torturing Frankenstein. I'm like, well, jeez.
Well, that's the only thing he ever really does.
Up. Well, he does try to mentally torture Jean, Ruler. It backfires. It could not have backfired more than it backfired for him.
It's like, haha, this'll break you. Oh, you mean this thing that you're doing that's making me incredibly angry and giving me resolve to murder you? Ooh, okay, that was... I didn't think that was going to go that way. Let me write something in here. Maybe there's another third act and go, shut up, Shakespeare, you hack.
No, I'm kind of with you. Shakespeare was a little disappointing only because in that part of the second season, several characters, including Assassin of Red and Lancer of Red, are both like, beware Castor. He's the one who could kill her.
Yeah.
And like you're really worried what's going to happen to Jean, and then it's like, hey, you're a saint and you have the hots for a boy, don't you feel guilty? And she's like, not particularly, no.
Nope, I'm good.
And he's like, oh.
No, you're an anime main character. You should feel guilty about everything. Like
literally everything.
You should have the Spider-Man syndrome where you think everything is your fault. No, I'm kind of actually more mentally healthy than that. Damn it.
Actually, as a someone who is raised Catholic myself, that might be the least realistic thing about this depiction of Joan of Arc, is that as a Catholic saint, she's not guilty all the time, because that's like our bread and butter.
That's literally what you do.
Oh, boy. But yeah,
also, I'm sorry that I'm backloading your show with my entire life story, by the way.
Just let it out. Just let it out,
like,
Nick.
I feel like this is more of a like a therapy session than anything. So you know what, Nick? Let it out, man. What was your relationship with your father like?
Remember patricide? We went through that part.
Oh, that's right. You know what? We don't even need to go
tried
through
to
that.
kill me with the Holy Spear Runga mini ad. So, no, I'm sorry. That's totally no. That's the show again. No, I'm getting mixed up. No,
I'll tell you what.
So back to the actual servants.
Yeah.
How is Semiramis an assassin? Like, I get the whole like backstory of like, oh, she was the first poisoner, but
okay. Look, okay. So we're okay. So a lot of these. So a lot of the classes do make sense on who gets picked for whatever.
This is a rare one in that regard. Like, the Lancers actually fight with spears and are good at it.
Like, the Lancers make sense.
The Archers use bows.
The Archers use bows. Things. Yeah, figure that out. Like, just...
That actually is really rare for the Fate series.
Yeah, normally in Fate, if you're an Archer, you just throw objects at people.
Astolfo does make sense for a rider. Achilles, he takes part in a gladiator race.
Well, I mean, he rode a chariot one time, I guess, so I guess that qualifies you.
To Achilles' credit, like one of his most dramatic scenes is tying Hector to the back of his chariot and riding around Troy while yelling, "Fuck you."
Fair.
The rider class is always one that's like,
I do believe Homer did ride in, and then Achilles shouted, the fucketh of you.
Quoth Achilles, "Fuck thou and fuck thy house."
Fuck it till it dies, to the ash, which I will also fuck. Man, we should rewrite the Iliad, guys. Now that I think about it.
First of the Iliad's been rewritten a few times.
We should do we should take our own pass at it.
Okay. But yeah, Semiramis is just like, now you're a caster. You are a straight up caster.
Right, so I don't understand how that one works, but I guess he can't have two casters or whatever, so fine.
You mean three?
Sure, so they're assassins or whatever, and
like her backstory makes sense, but her power set does not, because she's like considered the first poisoner, like in mythology. I'm like, fine, that makes sense. But then she summoned the fucking Tower of Babylon, or the Guardians of Babylon, and like, that's not. There's no concealing presence. There's no way of like.
Not exactly stealthy summoning an entire fucking city, but I'll tell you what. You know who is a better assassin? Jack the Ripper.
Well, if you like pedophilia, sure.
So Jack is interesting. I feel like Jack the Ripper is probably my least favorite part about the series.
Oh yeah, she should have been cut entirely because it takes up so much time that doesn't actually matter.
A lot of dead time. It feels like the only thing it really sets up is a conflict between the ruler, Jean, and what's
Adelante.
the other archer?
Adelante, the rider of... I mean, it's the rider. We're talking about riders. The Archer of Red.
Archer of Red, right. Who's also another Greek character, if I'm not mistaken.
She
right?
is.
You are correct.
A lot of Greek mythology in this one.
There was a disproportionate amount of Greek mythology in this series.
Which is good because it's one of those mythologies that I know, so that's helpful for me. So, but yeah, it really sets up that conflict because of her love for children, sort of thing, and that puts her in conflict with Jean. And so, like, I understand that gets set up, but other than that, the Jack the Ripper storyline kind of doesn't really go anywhere. Like, Jack comes out and kills the master of
she kills her own master,
right?
Who had grabbed a prostitute, I believe, to be a sacrifice to summon Jack.
And it's trading off the mythology of Jack the Ripper. And this old story of what was it, Travis? Like
it was actually like there's a whole bunch of myths involving Jack the Ripper, and in fact, one of them was actually that Jack was not a person, but like an embodiment of multiple spirits of aborted babies of prostitutes.
Yeah, so that's
rather fucked up.
So that's really
like that was actually like an actual thing apparently that people thought.
And also, they decided to make Jack what we call, I guess, I don't know who referred to her as a sexy lolly character, but, like, that's basically what she looks like, and it's weird, and...
Yeah, I've actually seen her figurine sold at, like, conventions. I'm like, that probably shouldn't actually even be legal. Like,
I have really mixed feelings about the Jack storyline, because in some ways, I actually thought it hit emotionally pretty hard, but I think the weakest part of it is that because there's that 3-part Jack storyline in the second half of the series, and I felt like what that was there for was to counterpoint that Sieg, our main character, our main homunculus boy, he says earlier in an episode how much he loves humans, and this is supposed to be this counterpoint to have him come to terms with the fact that humans can be ugly and terrible.
Sure.
And unfortunately, like, I felt like the Jack stuff really worked, but Sieg is the weakest character in the show, at least of the mains who stick around.
Yeah.
He's just kind of boring.
He's definitely the least interesting.
It's hard to move him along, and it makes him more annoying because he's surrounded by more interesting characters.
Well, he was born yesterday.
Fair.
And yeah, I'll tell you what, the romance between Sieg and Jean, little rushed for me.
I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of it on several levels. The only reason that it even sort of works in the Japanese version is that Ruler is played by Maya Sakamoto, who is just an amazingly talented actress, and she can sell anything, even if it's a romance subplot that I absolutely hate. But in the English, I didn't feel like the actress in the English delivered it nearly as well.
Sure. And, a lot of characters, just because there's 14
14 servants plus 2 rulers, plus a bunch of masters.
Yeah,
so.
And Sieg.
Boy. So a lot of them are going to get the short shrift. I get that.
Especially Astolfo's master.
Well, oh boy. So we didn't even get into Astolfo. So Astolfo, I'm not sure if it was supposed to be like it's supposed to be this big reveal that Astolfo is looks and is voiced by a woman, but then turns out to be a boy.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, it seems like a big reveal that people just have figured it out. I'm like, oh, well, okay.
Yeah, historical Astolfo was a dude, so they decided to go super androgynous, and
Well, that's
he ended
actually
up
also
being the
part of
breakout
Astolfo's
character.
myth.
Is it?
Okay.
Yeah, because apparently at one point, like, I don't remember how it was. There's something about how, like, a cousin of his, like, the fiance was very beautiful but died, and he, like, went crazy with, like, loss of it, and so Astolfo dressed up as a girl for him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was something like that. It was some, like, vague thing like that.
Oh, so that's what they were going. Okay, because I just thought it was a weird plot point that just kind of came up out of nowhere. But if it was
No, apparently it did actually have to do with a myth of Astolfo.
Okay,
Oh,
so they're just
well, Astolfo is generally a more comedic character in his myths,
Yeah.
so that makes sense.
right. You know what I don't like about Astolfo is that he spends all his time getting his ass kicked in this series. Mm-hmm. He never really gets a win.
No.
Like all these.
He gets some really good assists to his credit. I mean, like,
I suppose, yeah.
He has two fucking noble phantasms.
and he manages to break the ancient Babylonian lasers on Semiramis's fortress, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And without his use of Achilles' shield, Sieg would not have won that fight with Karna.
right.
So yeah.
No,
Like,
I guess-
I'll give Astolfo credit where credit is due.
Support character.
Yeah.
He was definitely the breakout character of the show, though. Like, the one who I don't think people were expecting to be as popular and has ended up being, like, enormously popular.
Because he's fun.
Well, I mean,
He's a great character.
he like facilitates the plot with whole Sieg and like that whole thing of like, and then going against the weird master who like also doesn't get any character development because all she seems to want
His master, who basically is only there to berate him and sexually assault him.
yeah, which is a weird plot point. Like, okay, not sure why that was there, but okay. But yeah, so I realize I've been talking a lot about like trying to wrap my mind around a lot of the different plot twists and stuff in this show, but it is really my favorite, and why it is because it actually isn't quite as complicated as the other ones because it's a lot of it's more
a standalone.
A lot of it's more character focused. We don't really deal with the plot until like the last 3 episodes or so.
And the characters, there are weak characters, but a lot of the other ones are so strong, especially like Astolfo, Mordred, Jean, and honestly Shiro Amakusa, that it counterpoints even when the plot doesn't feel like it's pulling its weight. The characters are so good, you kind of don't care.
Well, even the smaller characters, they have great designs and really cool attacks and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Karna doesn't do much for the story, but he put out some cool fights, that's for sure.
Well, even Vlad the Impaler, well, he never really moves from the track of Conqueror or anything. He's got a great, like, noble phantasm, and plus
I enjoyed the reveal that he's ashamed of being associated with the vampire novel.
Yeah,
I thought that was a really
fun.
cool, like, weakness to throw in there. Like, it's that does he have ridiculous vampire powers? Because people believe he does, yes. But he's so ashamed of that, he doesn't want to use them. Mm-hmm. Like, that's one of those goofy things in Fate I enjoy, is that sometimes people's perceptions of you will affect what your powers are.
Right.
Well, it's all based off the myth and how strong you are versus how people believe in you, I guess. Mm-hmm. Like, which is why, like some characters seem to be more powerful than others. Mm-hmm. Hercules is like, when he in his series was like just an unbelievable beast because everyone knew his story or whatever. Right. I like the idea of being more famous helps you out, but it also makes you weaker because people can figure out your shtick.
Yeah, you have to hide your noble phantasm to kind of hide who you are.
Right.
Oh god, Achilles had like one of the biggest weaknesses there because literally everyone knows.
Yeah, everyone knows.
There's a phrase based off of him.
Oh, speaking of Achilles and his relationship with Rider of Red, who I don't remember. No, Rider of
You
Black.
mean Archer?
Archer of Black.
I mean Archer of Black, yeah.
Sorry, I mixed the half horse guy with the Rider.
Right.
The half horse guy is not the Rider. Oh man, I'm so confused.
That was a fun dynamic between them, and it culminated in an amazing final fight.
Their fight has got to be one of the best hand-to-hand fights I've seen in an anime in a while.
Yeah.
Like that, where they're fighting on these planes, time has stopped, actually not even stopped, they're like in their own separate dimension or whatever.
And it's like we could fight with weapons, but instead, punkration. Let's do this.
Yes. That's great, and then like there's even some cool fight stuff like the stepping on like scarves to trap your opponent and and boxing him in.
They both fight dirty.
Yeah,
they both fight really
they kick
dirty.
Each other's ass.
Like they're in it to win. There's not a whole lot of like mixed, like they're leaving it all on the table because it is a battle between like, okay, let's figure out which one of us is the best. Let's do this.
Yes, it's student master fight.
Well, because at this point, they've teased this fight so much, like they've been fighting and then retreating and fighting and retreating, and now it's like, okay, no more retreat. It's you and me, one-on-one, one-man leave. All right, let's go.
And so often, and it's not even just an anime, it's lots of media, when characters have like a previous relationship, they want to hold back. And it's so interesting that for these two characters, the most respectful thing they can do is to literally fight to kill their opponent.
Yep. We should mention too that who the archer is Chiron. I think is how you pronounce it.
Yes.
The centaur who trained several Greek heroes.
Yes.
I like to refer to him as the technical term half horse guy, but whatever.
Fair enough. No, seriously though, like when his master summoned him, but didn't she like even go like, "Oh, I thought you'd be part horse," and she seemed very disappointed that he wasn't a centaur. I'm like, were you playing on fucking the horse guy? Like,
I liked his master too because like she had the Doc Octopus.
Yes,
she was a really fun character.
That was awesome. Like, I feel like we didn't get enough of her.
Yeah, she was pretty cool.
Also her brother too,
who was Frankenstein's master.
And there was that whole dynamic there of like because they actually had a wish that made sense to me of like, oh, I want my sister to walk again, or what was that like, and then the sister like, I want my brother to not have to rule or to to rule the house, the magic house that it was. I get lost on some of the details here of who wanted what, but
they really cared about each other though, and it was a legitimate relationship, and they form the heart of why you can cheer for the Black faction in the second season. Actually, on that note, can I just make an aside that we're just spoiling shit, right? Like that's.
I mean, we do usually wait for a spoiler section, but we spoiled so much already.
Yeah, this whole series is a little all over the place.
So
much
let's go for it.
When we get to the spoiler section, I have something to say about them. Just remind me of it. It's
all right. So yeah, you know what? We'll wrap up our regular review right here, and we'll hit into the spoiler section in just a minute. Is there anything else that anyone wants to bring up that's non-spoiler that we before we just go into our overall reviews?
Well, we were mentioning mostly just the characters, and I think we hit most of them. So.
Well, I mean, the plot for me is like for what I do understand, I'm like I don't. Oh, okay, fine.
I liked Siegfried, even though he did not show up for most of the show.
Sure,
Siegfried was really fun. Yeah, I'm glad we mentioned him because he was an interesting character, and what they did with him was fulfilling.
Yeah, and then we didn't even mention Avise Braun, the Golemancer.
Oh, right, man, because his story has a dark ending with his master too.
It was a dark ending, but it hurt. But then that final battle is extremely satisfying.
Yes.
And it's some of your better Mordred scenes because you have the remainder of Black faction trying to get Mordred to fight alongside them, and Mordred is just like trying to nickel and dime their way through this, not with actual money, but being like, "Hey, I would love to help. You should give my master 2 more command seals, though."
Yeah.
And Ruler's like, "I cannot give your master 2 more, maybe 1 more." Okay, I guess.
We'll wait 5 more and ask some more.
Nothing's free. I love Mordred.
And even getting a Knight of the Round Table screaming boom headshot. It doesn't get better than that, really.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I love the teenage mentality when it comes to Mordred of like the fighting. Like,
Yeah, he is surprisingly immature, which is really fun though.
Well, I mean, he's got his master to balance him out.
It's a very Mary Stuart reading of the character, because Mordred typically in the mythology was always just portrayed as either a conniving jerk or someone who his mom convinced to be a conniving jerk. Mm-hmm. And then in Mary Stuart's book, The Wicked Day, Mordred is framed more as the victim of a bloodline feud who means well from the beginning, but is a very young person and is kind of easily manipulated and ends up being a victim because of it.
You know, it makes me want a movie about Mordred. It makes me want like a Wicked version of Mordred. You know what I mean?
I would absolutely love to see even just that book that I mentioned, The Wicked Day, adapted to film, because it's really cool seeing, because they even portray it as Mordred is just like in what we see in the flashbacks in Fate Apocrypha. Mordred loves being a knight of the Round Table. Mordred loves King Arthur. Mm-hmm. Mordred loves Camelot and everything it stands for. And then it's just but then that influence from his mom, and then a bunch of, like, finding out about, like, the Lancelot thing and how Arthur deals with it. Mordred is so betrayed and so black and white in his vision of morality that he can't let his now imperfect father stand. And it's really heartbreaking. I can't even say it's kind of heartbreaking. It's extremely heartbreaking.
Nick, I'll tell you what. This was absolute pleasure having you on, and I don't regret it one bit. You were the perfect person to bring on for this. Bringing it real classy with that literature. I love it. Fantastic. But we are going to wrap up the reviews here.
Sorry about that.
We'll go into overall thoughts and ratings. I will start. I really like this series. I think it's probably my favorite. It is my favorite Fate series, just because it really is seems to be much more character focused. The biggest weakness I feel is like when we take a time out from some other character stuff, like with Jack the Ripper. I feel like that goes on a couple, like that we could have shaved that down an episode or so to it feels like we're killing time. Also, when we get to the ending, like when the plot actually kicks in, we act like, oh, we can't put it off anymore. We actually have to do plot stuff. The show gets noticeably like, oh, okay, we're going through paces here, and we're kind of just wrapping up. Like everyone knows the dance moves, so now we gotta do this. Up until the very end, where it just goes like, wait a minute, how does that? There's a lot of how does that work at the very end that I'm very curious to ask Nick about in the spoiler section. I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5. I think it's very solid, especially for Netflix's original animes or whatever they put their stamp on. I'm not sure how that all works. I think it's definitely one of their better ones. It was the most fun for me. Like, just in terms of pure animation and the fighting, I thought was pretty good. Also, I love any series that makes me feel like I'm at a rave with all the subwoofer sound effects going on. It made me think any battle could turn into a dance battle at any point.
That should totally be a side series.
So I like the next Holy Grail War will be mixed with a Step It Up movie. You just got served.
There's a Fate cooking anime right now. Don't joke. This could happen.
Oh boy, I'm gonna have to go look that up after this review is done. I think
it's probably only subbed though.
I don't care. I'm gonna at least get to the first episode to watch. Travis, what do you think?
No, this one was pretty solid. I've seen more of the Fate universe than Nick has, because I watched Fate Stay Night, the original, along with Illuminated Blade Works, as well as played some of the PSP games. So I know just a little bit more of it, but this one was kind of fun because it was like a more standalone. We're just like, yeah, we're just gonna have fun with this one, I guess. I think by the nature of it, it was gonna be slow because you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna have like at minimum 14 characters, so they can't all be important. And I understand why they had to do it, because, like, yeah, we have to balance out the classes. We can't just be like, no, this team doesn't get a caster, and be like, well, people who really like the caster class would kind of be like, why the fuck not?
Right.
So, I do understand they had like the limitations of it. Overall, being that it is a like character-driven storyline, there's a few of the Masters of Black that were really interesting. So I kind of like, yeah, they had good connections with their spirits. They actually did for the plot. It's probably actually a good thing that they basically went like, yeah, we're just not going to deal with the Masters of Red. We have too many people as it is.
Yeah,
we're just going to like.
It definitely feels like a plot
move.
shove aside of like, no. That's what, like another 10 characters we have to deal with. No. Yeah. we're gonna get right past that.
Yeah. They'd be like, nope, Amakusa's going to be kind of a character for that side as well as the Necromancer. So we're just going to deal with them, and that's it. Overall, fun series. It was a fun watch, and I do kind of hope that more of the Fate series gets on Netflix because it would be nice to have a more of a mainstream way of accessing it. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
So that's 7 out of 10. Oh, I forgot to give a qualifier. Mine are 4 Yigida Millennials out of 5.
Yigida Tell me that fast 4 times now.
Yigida Never mind. Nick, what do you feel?
I'm gonna say this was. I'm very, very fond of this series. I would give it definitely 11 out of 12 Paladins of Charlemagne. What would you say, Astolfo?
I love it so much, Master!
Thanks, Astolfo. No, I really thoroughly enjoyed this series. I enjoyed the Fate series already, but this had a nice blend of Masters. It had some good action. It had, as I already mentioned, my favorite Knight of the Round Table showed up. It was just, it seemed like any time they decided to do some deep cut, it was always just a icing on that mythological cake. So yeah, I really loved it.
Yeah, you had to like dig deep for some of these. Like, I think there's a reason for this somewhere. Let's go dig it up here.
Oh God!
Wikipedia page.
Adelante's flashback, you get 2 more servants that if you've played the mobile game, you recognize them, and then if you know mythology, it's really cool. But if you don't, it's just these 2 random, really beautiful character designs.
Just. Okay, so that wraps up our review, guys. If you want to cut out before the spoiler section, we completely understand. It seems like all of us would highly recommend that you watch this series for sure. So take our recommendations there. Otherwise, Nick, would you like to tell the people where they can find you on the online and whatnot?
I can be found at lots of places. For a collection of a lot of my video essays, you can just go to nickizumi.com, which takes you to a subsite of nerdandtie.com, which is the every 2 weeks podcast that I appear on, talking about all sorts of nerd news and various topics of the sort. I also do stuff at a lot of conventions in the Midwest area with Takoyaki Entertainment. We're a comedy group, and we are all sorts of fun. That's I can be found at all those places. Plus, just look me up on Facebook or Twitter, Nick Izumi. You'll find me there. I'm probably going to be complaining about something or telling people that they're dumb for being upset about She-Ra or whatever. I don't know.
Okay. Well, we have enjoyed having you on, Nick. It's been fantastic. I can't wait to have you on again and see what other psychological insecurities you might have, or really
I know this is
just delve deep into the
I feel like we should start charging him for this.
We should really, we gotta figure out who is Nick really underneath everything. Like, who is Nick? But until then, you can always check out our back catalog, including an episode that Nick was on called, One Punch Man, a little anime you might have heard of.
The adventures of the popular anime character Eric One Punch Man. Really
One Punch Man.
One Punch Man, yes.
One Punch Man. Cousin to Spider-Man and Superman. And you didn't know that so many superheroes were Jewish. But yes, you can find that and all of our back catalog on our UGO network on iTunes. Check all that good stuff out. Maybe give us a 5-star review while you're there. Helps us out with that algorithm and all that good stuff. And other than that, check us out afterwards if you're not sticking around for the spoiler section. And we'll start with that spoiler section right after this.
雨の雫みたい迷いながら落ちてゆくそれぞれの想い んだ道へ
And welcome to the spoiler section for Fate Apocrypha. So, there are a lot of spoilers, including the ultimate winner of the Holy Grail War. And for this, I'm just going to kick it right to Nick here. He's burning to talk about some of these spoilers. Nick, go for it.
I've got there are two spoilers that I really like, and both of them relate to the middle of the show. So obviously they're kind of hinting that the Red Faction are going to be nasty dudes pretty early on. But then I love that their reveal is that Shiro Kotomine, who the whole time fans of the Fate series, because this is an alternate universe, are like, oh wow, it's like if Shiro, the main character from Stay Night, got raised by the Kotomines and now he's like an evil priest. It's like, wow. And then, because Kiniko Nasu, the creator of Fate, is so into ruining people's expectations, it's like, it's not Emiya at all. It's not even related to him. It's a samurai from the 1800s who led a Catholic rebellion. And he's also a ruler. So now we have like this, Catholic murder throwdown going on. And
a battle for the ages. So yeah, that happens.
Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm. It does indeed happen.
I got a kick out of that, and it was a kind of welcome twist. Although that was one where, even though that was one of my majors in college, was that period of Japanese history, I had to look up who Shiro Amakusa Tokisada was. So that was a little embarrassing. But the fallout of that particular battle has one of my favorite, just inadvertently funny things, which is, after this whole thing and Red Faction reveals their end game and, that they've got their Catholic samurai leader, the Black Faction is in shambles, and several of their servants and a couple of their masters, including the patriarch of the household, is dead. But I love that while they're recovering, tears are shed for Frankenstein, but no one in the family is like, wow, I'm so sad Nazi Grandpa died.
No, that was pretty much that seemed to more go to everyone's plan than more than anything.
What a loss. Too bad Nazi Grandpa won't be at Romanian Thanksgiving this year.
Fuck him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there was a whole lot of some characters seem to be more important to others. I don't think Astolfo's master even gets mentioned. I mean, they might get a mention, but then oh, well, that sucks. Anyway, moving on. So yeah, you said you had two spoilers. Was that both?
Yeah, that was both of them. Those are the ones that really stuck out to me, and I wanted to talk about.
Okay, so the thing I want to talk about was just the very end here, where they do activate the Holy Grail. And I forget the exact circumstances here, but the Holy Grail is going to destroy the world? Is that right?
Sort of. It's what it is that Tokisada being, Tokisada saw war and destruction, and with his dying breath said, "Not in my good Catholic neighborhood." So that when he incarnated as a servant, he made it his, and then fought in another bloody Holy Grail war that coincided with World War II, by the way, so he saw all sorts of death. That he was trying to save all of humanity. That was his end goal. Mm-hmm. So what he wanted to do with the Holy Grail was to make everyone immortal.
Right.
No one dies. Everyone across the world, no one dies. They just live forever. And then clearly no one will suffer ever again, right?
No.
I feel like he hasn't thought this
Thanos,
through.
Really. Yeah. I don't think he's thought this through at all. It's reverse Thanosing.
Reverse Thanosing. I love it.
Not wrong.
It's Sanoth. I can't do backwards. What am I, Satana? This is bullshit. Anyway, yeah, so I do love his final reveal of his plan, because it comes in so late. It's in the last two episodes, and I'm like, that's it? No, you haven't run this by anyone? Because I'm pretty sure if you told anyone this plan,
they could point out all the flaws.
They could poke some holes in it. It just, off the top of my head, I feel like I could come up with a couple reasons why this won't work.
Well, okay, one other thing I love about Tokisada is there is a scene in Season 1 where he actually says to Semiramis, if there's anything wrong with this plan, God will strike me down. And, like, for the rest of the show, my best friend, Archimedes, was watching it with me, and every time he did something horrible, he's like, look, nothing happened, God likes me!
Yeah, it's a weird justification going on there. And so, but don't worry, because his even though his wish is activated, Sieg has turned into a dragon, which I guess is a thing he can do.
No, that's also lore.
That's also lore?
Siegfried's lore.
Siegfried's lore is that he could, okay.
He kills a dragon named Fafnir, and has Fafnir's blood spills on him, so he turns part dragon.
I thought that just turned him immortal.
No.
Wait, so...
He's gradually turning more dragony, because Fafnir was
okay. Okay, so he turns into a dragon and flies the Grail somewhere where it won't affect Earth, I guess?
The implication I got was that he went to one of the poles. He just went where it's cold and no one's going to look for him.
But I don't think that's how the Grail works, because...
It is now.
I love Travis, like, prove it. I mean, I can't, so
exactly.
I guess.
Basically, the set rules we have for the Fate Grail is that it is omnipotent but not omniscient. So there's no limit to its magical ability, but it can only do what the person who makes the wish can imagine. Okay. So, because it has unlimited magical power, that was what came into Tokisada's head, and the Grail's like, well, guess I gotta roll with this.
Okay. So, but... and then, Jean... I guess Sieg must end up in the spirit world somehow, because Jean finds him later in, like, this field, and then I guess they're together? Like, in the...
Yeah, that part I have no explanation for, because I had no emotional investment in their relationship whatsoever.
I like how Nick was like, you know what, I might have bothered to figure out how this worked, but I couldn't give less of a shit. So
I couldn't. I'm sorry. Like, honestly, all of the Fate Sieg all of the Jean Sieg scenes, all I could think to myself were how sincere all of the Sieg Astolfo scenes were, and then the voice, I feel queer baited right now.
You know, now that I think about it, that would have been a little more interesting.
Just saying, in any other, like, piece of media, the character rescues person from being, enslaved, and it gives them a object to remember them by. That would have been when you meet the love interest in any other series. True. But not for Astolfo.
Uh-huh.
So,
oh boy, I'm thinking back on it now, and Nick's kind of right on this one, I think. But
any other piece of media. I'm not saying that all writers need to be lazy and stick to tropes. I feel a little queer-baited, that's all.
I mean, this trope would have worked. I mean, I think it would have been different, because I think what draws me to the pairing of Sieg and Astolfo is that they're kind of like opposites a little bit, you know? Since Sieg is a little bland and a little normal, and then Sieg is like so up and like high energy sort of thing.
Yeah, Astolfo.
Astolfo is so high energy. And Jean and Sieg are both just a little too bland and kind of just like, you know, we're kind of both just normal and nice and good looking, so why don't we end up together?
Yeah, that's what it felt like to me. And
CW
I had
rules.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, the show is not without its problems, but I still feel like I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts before we just wrap this one up, guys?
It is interesting, too, because you notice that Astolfo is actually... They show her alive, or him alive at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, he gets to
that's
live.
Right.
He just gets to go off and...
Right, wait, how does that work?
Because Astolfo's master didn't die.
Wait.
Because Sieg is now Astolfo's master because of the trading of things, I think.
So, I guess he'd just have a constant mana burn from the dragon.
Yeah, because the dragon has the Holy Grail that supplies unlimited mana.
Oh, God, okay.
Astolfo can live forever, I think?
So, Astolfo's probably just gonna go... have adventures and put his dick in everyone. I don't know. Probably.
love how Nick was like, well, I mean, what would I love how Nick was like, well, what I would do with immortality? I'd put my dick in stuff. Like, I like that someone got a happy ending. But that's great. I think,
and Rostolfo will spend the rest of his life looking for his true love interest.
by putting, by putting his dick on stuff. We have to end on dick and stuff, I think.
Dick and stuff.
I know.
Especially
what did I
after...
do? I love that. I actually have a figure of that character on my shelf. I'm not even kidding. I really loved him. I don't know why I'm being such a jerk.
I'm just going off of you, Nick.
I know, I'm the worst. Literally the worst.
Well, Nick, you know where you haven't been the worst on this podcast. You've been amazing yet again. Thank you so much again for coming on.
Thanks for having me, you guys. I enjoy being on the show.
Of course. Anyway, thanks for everyone for listening. Until next time, we are Unapologetic Geek Out, and we're out. And don't put your dick in stuff.
Dick and stuff.
Not all
unless
stuff.
they're okay with it. Like
consensual dick and stuff.
Yeah, consensual dick and stuff.
Consensual dick and stuff.
Yeah.
That's good.
I love that's our ending. I love that's our out.
No, that's it. That's all we need.
That's how we roll. That's just how we roll on this podcast.
What's a better ending than consensual dick and stuff?
I couldn't think of one, Travis. I really can't. I feel like that's how we roll.